We get 3 movies in the Hostel franchise, so let's rank them. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a good one today. I'm the movie ranker, and today I'm ranking all 3 Hostel movies from worst to best. I feel like these movies get a bad rep. They're pretty much just seen as torture movies, but I feel like there's more to them than that. Yeah, if you haven't seen them, definitely give them a shot because I feel like they're kind of underrated. Even the worst movie out of these 3 is still worth a watch, so go check them out if you haven't. And if you have, let me know how you rank them down in the comments section. We'll have a great discussion. Like the video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any future rankings. I will be going into some spoiler territory here, so heads up. And without wasting any more time, let's rank them. So for me, kicking things off in last place at number 3, I'm going with Hostel Part 3. The movie has a bad reputation and I just don't get it. It is the worst out of this trilogy, but it's not a bad film if you ask me. It's a 3-star movie for me. I think it's entertaining, has a good opening, really screwed me up, a lot of misdirection going on. The opening sequence, you figure we're following this American who goes to a hostel. You figure he's the good guy, but he's really a bad guy, and these Ukrainians are really the good guys. And it's all in Las Vegas, which is nice. They kind of changed up the setting, changed the formula just a bit, makes things a bit more interesting. And there really is a few misdirections in this film, which I really enjoyed. Like right away, you run into these escorts, which you figure they're bad, they're in on it, but they're not. They go to this club in the middle of nowhere that looks like an abandoned factory. You're like, this is the place where they're getting tortured. But it's not. So there's like a lot of things going on in this film which kept throwing me off. I'm like, wow, I like that you're tricking me. It's not as straightforward and predictable as I thought it would be. Like I said, the film is entertaining. The third act is a little bit action-packed, so that's kind of fun. And I do like the way the movie ends, even though it doesn't quite make sense. You got Scott and his girlfriend. They got Carter tied up because he ended up making it home before Carter somehow. And obviously this isn't long after the events of the film because he's still all burnt up and their guy got cuts all over him still. So this is like right after the events at the hostel place or at the torture place. And somehow Scott makes it back to his girlfriend first to explain to her everything that's going on. But I really do like how they bring Carter into the basement and they get to do their own torturing at the end, even though we don't really see it. It is a satisfying ending. The kills in here are okay. I feel like the gore is toned down a bit, which I thought would be the opposite. I thought this would go all in on the torture, but not really. We get like a face removal. We get a guy killed with arrows or bolts or whatever all through him. It's okay, but nothing compared to the first 2 movies. Those ones get pretty disturbing and gross and whatnot. This one doesn't really cross that line for me personally. And it's mostly done practically, but there is some digital effects in here that really bother me. One being like sparks. There's a couple scenes with sparks in it that you can tell are digital. There's a scene with a taser on a guy's mouth or a cattle prod or whatever, and you can tell the electricity coming from it is digital. It doesn't ruin the movie or anything, but not the greatest digital effects in here. I thought the characters are kind of forgettable compared to the first 2 films. They're serviceable enough in this flick. It's just, it definitely is a downgrade from the first 2 films, in my opinion. And I don't really get the whole concept of this happening in Las Vegas. I mean, it kind of doesn't make sense because the first 2 movies were clearly in Slovakia, and you got all these people from around the world going there because that's where you can torture people, pay for it, and get away with it, right? So why would these people be traveling to Slovakia, these Americans and that in these other films, if they had it in their own backyard in Las Vegas? So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I do like, again, they changed up the formula. They do have someone torturing people, but you have an audience watching as well, and they're wagering on how they're going to die and everything. So obviously in Vegas you gamble, so I do like that they added that gambling thing into the scenario. And funny enough, there's actually no hostel in this film, or they're not staying at one anyway. There is a hostel, but it's only in the opening of the film, and in like the middle of the film they go there to try to find their friend, but only lasts like 2 minutes there, and then they get kidnapped or whatever. So Kind of weird that this is Hostel Part 3 and the people they're staying at like a hotel in this one. They're not even staying at a hostel, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's just to say that it's part of this franchise. And aside from some choppy editing here and there, again, it's a very entertaining film. And I think you should watch it if you like the first two movies, because I feel like a lot of people stop after part two because of all the bad rep this movie gets, but it's actually not all that bad. Up next at number two, I'm going with Hostel Part 2. Pretty great flick. I really like this sequel. It's almost on par with the original for me. I like how the characters are female this time, our main leads. The first one was three guys. This time we got three girls. One of them being Randy's sister from Scream, funny enough. I think her name's Lorna in here. We got Beth and Whitney. Love those girls. They're great characters. Beth especially. I really like Beth. And the movie opens actually continuing right off of part one. We get to see the aftermath of part one where Paxton gets taken to the hospital and everything, and he's an investigation and everything on him, and then they end up killing him in the hospital because they're part of the elite hunting club or whatever too. But this was all a dream sequence, and thank God, because I was like, no, I didn't want that to be the beginning of this film. But no, he wakes up and we find out he's back in America, but he's still scared for his life. And it's just interesting how he doesn't trust anybody, and for good reason, because his girlfriend's sister found out where they are, and that led to him being decapitated because the hunting crew found him. And it just goes to show how powerful this elite club is and how they have eyes all around the world, which I thought was really interesting. And this film does repeat some of the same beats as the first movie, but I like that we get to see a different side of the story. We get to see a couple of the villains this time and follow them around at the same time as our protagonists, which I thought was kind of cool. Get kind of a look behind the scenes, see what goes on in the hunting club side of things. So I really like that. And this film and the first film are both directed by Eli Roth, so you get that great dark humor in there. You also get Tarantino producing both of these movies, which is great. You get Pulp Fiction actually playing on TV in a different language in both of these films, which I thought was funny. It's funny, especially that they redid it again in part two when they're at that same hostel. And this one has a bit more gore than the first film, a little less raunchy nudity in here. And yeah, like I said, it's pretty equal with the first for me, but this one just goes down just a bit more. The ending is great, but it feels rushed. It feels like it's over too quickly. It is satisfying, but again, I felt like it could have been dragged out a little bit more. The first movie has a great final act, and this one, like I said, it just seems to up at the end abruptly, where it's still satisfying, but I want it more. It just felt a little bit rushed to me. And the kills are pretty intense in here. We got Lorna's death. Like I said, Randy's sister from Scream. She gets hanged upside down naked, and this girl, like with a scythe, starts slashing at her underneath of her while she's naked as well, and she has like this bloodbath. Really sick and twisted stuff, but... And that character did not deserve it. She was like the nicest character I've ever seen in film. She didn't drink or do nothing, didn't party. Really nice girl, and she's the first one to go out, and you're like, wow, this movie is not holding back. And some of the other kills, we get like dogs ripping people apart, which is pretty brutal. We get the final act as Beth removing a penis, which is never something you'll want to see, balls and all. But yeah, some pretty good gore in here. Just a few things holding this one back for me. One, I didn't really like how everybody could wager and bid like on the girls before they were chosen. Like once they were part of the game, basically everybody around the world, the rich people got the bet on them who want to kill them, right? Where it's like, I thought there were set prices. The first movie had set prices, with Americans being the most expensive at $25,000. So I don't really understand why they changed the rules so quickly, because this movie takes place not long after the first. So that was a bit confusing. There's this weird scene with the kids who are like criminals in this, where our main lead Beth is running through the woods away from the bad guys, and the kids are just randomly in the woods with a booby trap like set. It's like as if they were waiting for someone to run through that random part of the woods, which I thought was like so out of nowhere and so convenient for the kids, like, you know. So that kind of was like, could have been written a bit better. And talking about the two antagonists, the two villains that we kind of follow, one of them doesn't really seem like he wants to be there. He doesn't want to get the tattoo, that's for sure. They force him to get it, the hunting dog tattoo, bloodhound. Stewart is his name, and his friend Todd seems super pumped to kill somebody. He's like, "This will make you a man," and everything. So once they get in there, you find out that Todd was all talk, and once he actually goes to do something, he chickens out. He's like, "No, I can't do it." But this is what I don't like. I like that part, but with Stewart, where he was like not really into this the whole time, and he has Beth in the room, and there's a moment where he's like, "Oh, I can't do this. I'm not like these people," and he takes off his apron and everything. And it seems like out of nowhere, he kind of snaps me like, "No, I'm going to do this." And I'm just like, what? It kind of seems like out of nowhere. He does see his friend's body all in pieces for not killing the other girl. They ended up tearing him apart with a dog. And I can see how that could cause him to snap because that was his best friend who got killed. So he'd take it out on these girls. But he snaps before he sees that. So I just don't get it. He kind of throws out something like how Beth reminds him of his wife. So that's why he's doing this. And his wife like doesn't appreciate him or something like that. I'm just like, all that could have been written better and more tight. But everything else in this film is kind of great, and it was a worthy sequel to the original. But easily coming in the first place for me is Hostel, the first movie. What a surprise. I've never seen these films before, and I feel like I said, they get a bad rep, so I've only heard bad things, and everybody's saying, "Oh, it's just torture porn or whatever." There's more to it than that. There's actually a good world here that they built up, and great characters and everything. So I think this movie deserves more praise. It's an excellent friggin' movie. And it's interesting. It's almost split up into three parts. The first section feels like you're watching a raunchy 2000s comedy, like American Pie, or even better yet, Euro Trip, because they're in Europe, right? And I thought that was really interesting. It's really raunchy, full of nudity and everything. The second half, or the middle, feels more like a mystery going into the torture scenes and stuff. Of course, more gory and stuff. And then the final act, with Paxton, I feel like it's like Hitchcockian a little bit, full of suspense, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat for like the last 30 minutes or so of this film. It's done so well. And like I stated, the world building is great, whether you're talking about the elite hunting club itself with their tattoos and just the aprons and the get-ups they all have to wear and their crazy masks and stuff they put on, to how they set up tourists being put into here and the bidding, and everything is pretty damn awesome and original, something we've never seen before, honestly. Unfortunately, this really tarnished the reputation of Slovakia, though. Apparently after that, their tourism dropped like crazy because people actually believed stuff like this happened there, where in reality that was not the case. And funny enough, I know a lot of people are actually pissed off at this film due to the language. For instance, they're in the Netherlands. They're in Amsterdam at the starting of this film, say, and I think they speak Dutch there, I believe, and apparently they're just speaking like German, or like a broken German here. It's like, you'd think they would have got the language right if, like, you do research for when you're making a movie. You think you would have got people speaking the right languages or something, but I can understand that pissing off the locals that watch this movie, but someone like me, a Canadian or an American, that would go right over our head. We wouldn't even realize it. We get this really awesome scene where Paxton, where he's trying to get away from the torturers and that, and he ends up in the locker room where all the murderers like dress up and everything, all these killers, and he ends up running into another killer, and they have quite the conversation. He's played by Rick Hoffman, and I think he is such a great villain, like in this, just the way he goes on, and he's like so excited to murder somebody, and he's like wondering how Paxton's gonna do it because he believes he's a killer as well. And that is one of the best scenes in the film, honestly. I just love the interaction them two have. The kills are pretty good. There's a couple of gross puke scenes, but I don't think they're done that grossly. It looks more like bile, because puke really does bother me, but it didn't bother me that much in the movie. But that's probably the grossest part. But we do get like ankles being sliced and people walking and splitting. We get chainsaw slices through people. We get drills. We get a really nasty eye hanging. Ugh, looks nasty, especially when they pull it and pus comes out and everything. Nasty. I don't know. This one and the second movie are kind of on par with the gore and how nasty things get, which, like I said, I was surprised part 3 didn't really go that far in that territory. Takashi Miike actually makes a funny cameo in here. And I forgot to mention in Hostel Part 2, what's his name? The dude who made Cannibal Holocaust. What's his name? Ruggero uh, Diodato, I think he's an Italian guy, the director of Cannibal Holocaust, is actually in part two. And you get this hilarious scene where he's actually doing cannibalism when you see him. I was like, that was a clever little cameo they added in there. And I just think the movie does a really good job at drawing out its mystery, and you figuring out what's really happening, even though you have a good idea of what's happening. You're along for the ride, and it's a fun one. And a big reason for that is the characters. I really like our three main characters here. Ollie, the guy from Iceland, we got Paxton, and we got Josh. And the way they're set up, I figured Josh was our main guy because, you know, he's not so much into partying like the other two. And he just seems like the main character out of the three. And funny enough, he's gone like halfway through this movie, and we focus much more on Paxton after that, which I didn't think much of, but he does have a great arc in here. He gives a backstory near the starting of the film about how he witnessed a little girl drowning and she was screaming, and he tried to go get help and everything. And he really, this is really hard on him. He always remembers that from his past, which comes back later a couple times. One where this gang of little kids, they're always trying to rob people in that in Slovakia. They end up stealing his cell phone, and he ends up grabbing one of the kids and like choking him. But then I think he stops because it like brings him back to the time where a little kid was dying, you know, and he could hear their screams and they couldn't breathe, right? Just like when he's choking this kid, because the kid was drowning in his past. And again, one more time, it comes back in the final act where they're all getting tortured, and he finally escapes, makes it to a car with keys and everything. It's his chance to get away, like easy getaway, but he hears screaming of one of the girls that was from the hostel. He recognizes the screams, and he does the right thing. He goes back to save her ass and get her out of there with him, which again, hearing those screams must have brought him back to when he heard the kid screaming when she was drowning as a kid, when he tried to save her or tried to get help or whatever. So I think he has a great arc in here. He goes from this kind of dumbass party guy to really redeeming himself by the end. And like I said, this third act is so engaging, so suspenseful, thrilling. Him escaping from the torture place and everybody on his tail trying to get him. The cops are involved, so he can't even trust them. And there's this really awesome scene with the kids that I didn't expect in the third act, where the kids were against them all the time because they're criminals, where he actually gets the kids to work with him to take out the bad guys. Friggin' awesome, and such a hell yeah moment. All the way leading up to the train station, where the Asian girl that he's trying to protect and save sees how disfigured she is, losing her eye and everything, and she decides to sacrifice herself in front of the train so that Paxton can get away. And again, just great character moments in here. I'm telling you, it's kind of underrated if you ask me. And we get the real finale where he takes out one of the head torturers, which they met on the train on their way there. And it's just such a satisfying ending, I find. It's really what put this movie over the top for me. Like I said, the other two movies in this franchise, they have satisfying endings as well, but not like this one. This one really did it right, and it honestly could have been a one and done film and I would have been happy, but I'm happy with this franchise as well. So Hostel movies, man, I kind of find them underrated. You should check them out if you haven't seen them. And my favorite out of the bunch is Hostel Part 1, so it comes in the first place. So there you have it, guys. There's my ranking of all 3 Hostel movies. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you drop your ranking down below in the comment section. We'll have a great discussion. Maybe the movies I love are the ones you hate, or maybe you hate all of them. I'd still love to hear it from you, as well as liking the channel, subscribing so you don't miss out on anything. Liking the video, I mean, subscribing to the channel. You can follow me on Instagram, Letterboxd. Links to those are always in the description of my videos, guys. I'm having a hard time to talk, so I'll leave you on this note. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll be back with more, and until next time, thanks for watching.